Now joined on the line by Stephen Hendry to look back at his iconic snooker career in our series where we look at global sporting icons. And Stephen, if I can start off by asking you, I asked last week I had Maurice Greene, the world champion 100 metre sprinter from decades ago before Usain Bolt, and I asked him, starting off this question, when you've achieved your ultimate aim in the sport, to become a world champion and you fulfil a lifetime's ambition, what is the sort of most motivation that makes the elite sports stars want to sort of achieve more and to keep going once you've reached the peak of your sport? For Maurice Greene, for example, he was said that when he went home every evening, he would look himself in the mirror at that night and the goal was to be better than yesterday. Everything he done yesterday, the goal he set him was to be better the following day. And what would be your take reaching the top at a young age and to keep that consistent level as you did throughout your career?
Well, I certainly didn't look at myself in the mirror. I know that, but yeah, I think when you reach your first ambition to be like when I was world champion, I achieved world champion and world number one at the same time.
Yeah.
So obviously achieving those was at the same time was obviously a lifetime ambition achieved. Sort of 5 years after I turned pro, but I was just greedy for more success. To be honest, I was never satisfied with what I had. Well, I really probably didn't show much emotion when I lifted trophies or anything like that, because basically it was okay. That's one tour at one. When's the next one? So I was always thinking ahead. I was never satisfied.
Yeah, and Stephen, if I can take you back there to 1981, a 12-year-old boy writing down his Christmas list for Santa and asking for that child-sized snooker table as a Christmas present. And was there something that intrigued you growing up? Did you watch snooker with your father Gordon, or were you brought around halls, or what sort of drew you to snooker at a young age? And when you got that sort of childlike snooker table when you were young, was it the excitement of just potting balls and you just got into a rhythm for it and just say, well, I've got a knack for this? Or what made you sort of that initial draw at such a young age to snooker?
Well, it was an idea with I was actually walking through where I lived in Dunfermline with my mum, and we didn't really know she didn't really know what to get me for a Christmas present. We seen in the shop window there was these like small snooker tables, and so she sort of said, well, what do you think about that sort of thing? And I said, yeah, well, fine. I'd never played snooker before. I never watched snooker before. So it was just a complete sort of fluke, really, to get that for a Christmas present, and yeah, well, like within a couple of weeks, I started making 50 breaks. So it was just something that I was naturally good at.
And growing up in relation to as a 13 and a 14-year-old and competing in snooker tournaments, were you always able to, growing up, I imagine you were playing roughly in those tournaments to small crowds, and were you able to distance yourself and go into that sort of a rhythm for a young age? And was it building up that sort of consistency at a young age? Was that sort of the key as you got older, or was there an awful lot of maths involved at a young age? Had you an awful mathematical mind for angles and sort of cushions at such a young age, or just went off and played off the cuff?
No, it was just natural. It was just I just played for, obviously at the beginning. It was a hobby, really. I didn't play it for any. I didn't ever think that it was going to become a career or anything like that. I played obviously every spare minute in the day that I could find. So I was still at school, but as soon as I got home from school, I would just play snooker. Then obviously started entering like junior tournaments, under 16 tournaments, things like that. In Scotland, then in England. But yeah, up until from sort of age 13 to 16, it was I always sort of treated it more like a hobby than a career.
Yeah, and did your parents latch on to your success at an early age in relation to bringing you across the country to all these across the Scotland to all these sort of tournaments? And was there any other sports that were in the reckoning for a young Stephen Hendry growing up, or when you turned 15 or 16, when you got into well, I've got a gift here? Was it just complete focus on snooker, or did your parents ever push you down that other route or suggest alternatives in relation to pursuing trade or a trade career, or was it just always said follow your dream, Stephen?
No, I think my dad used to take me around all the sort of junior tournaments, drive me around. But no, I mean I played sort of football and badminton at school when I was young at primary school, but I was never really stood out. Yeah, it was just, you know, snooker was I was playing, as I say, every spare moment. I was fortunate that my parents never really stopped me playing and said, no, you have to do your homework, or you have to do your studying, or you have to do this or that. They sort of indulged it and let me get on with it. And I think from a very early age, certainly my dad certainly seen my potential and always believed that I was going to go on and do something in my life with snooker. So yeah, I was fortunate that they let me just go ahead and play.
And Stephen, you turned probably the one. I know it was you sort recently, but for a long period, you were the youngest ever professional snooker player. In 1985, age 16, you turned professional, and you got a sort of agent early on and a sort of a business manager. And as a young kid growing up like that, competing in certain tournaments, did you have to sort of change your lifestyle in relation to how you manage school, in relation to certain aspects of your life, in relation to friends, in relation to your what diets, what you ate, everything like that? Were you introduced to a whole world, or was it just you went to school and then at the weekends you were just competing in snooker tournaments?
Yeah, I played, as you say, weekends. I left school, just before I was 16, sort of 15 and a half years old, and it was just snooker. Snooker was my life, basically. I just wanted to play every day. Obviously, I was winning, amateur titles in Scotland, senior amateur titles, then against grown men and junior tournaments. So I was earning a little bit of money as well, which was nice. So yeah, it was. But I still never dreamed that it would become, what it became. My life. My life as a career in snooker.
Yeah, and I'll push you forward now to 1987. You're after winning your first ever world ranking title, the Grand Prix, beating another legend, Dennis Taylor, 10-7 in the final. And you were probably on a roll then, and did you see the breakout was about to happen in relation to going forward in relation to 1989? Was that morale victory over Dennis Taylor? Did that sort of fill you sort of with confidence and a belief that the breakthrough is just around the corner for me?
Well, it was the first major tournament that I won, the Rossman's Grand Prix, as you say, in 1987. And it was also the first time I'd ever beaten Steve Davis in a major tournament as well. I beat Steve Davis in the quarterfinal, and that was a major milestone for me because he was the number one player, and I'd played him about 15 or 16 times and not managed to beat him. So to beat him the first time was a huge boost in confidence for me, and then to go on and win the tournament, as you say, my first sort of major event was as you say, a big milestone.
Yeah, and by 1988 you were ranked number 4th in the world. But I'll take you then to 1989, which was the real breakout year for Stephen Hendry as a global phenomenon. You won the UK Championship, Dubai Classic, Asian Open, Scottish Masters, the Masters, and that first World Championship, beating another legend, Jimmy White, 18-12 in the final. And a World Championship in relation to that, going into that as a youngster, still probably in 19, I would say you were 19, maybe 20 at the time, still probably with a rookie, but maybe not as the experience in relation to years as veterans such as Jimmy White and stuff like that. So going into a mammoth sort of a tournament that is the World Championships, and the event it's played over for the best part of a week, and you could be talking days to finish games. How hard was that to control or manage, or had you got used to that life cycle of a major event?
Yeah, I got used to that very quickly. I just love snooker, so I love being involved in the biggest events, the World Championship. I was obviously yet to win it, so that was my ambition. So obviously I just loved playing at the Crucible. It was always my favourite place to play throughout my whole career. So yeah, I just loved every minute of it, of competing against the other top players, and the World Championship was obviously the last tournament of the season, so everything builds up to that.
Yeah, and I suppose, Stephen, you really, from then on, you had a domination of the sport in the 90s, where you won the World Championship 7 times, 5 on the trot, a record in the modern era. And I spoke there last year to Ken Doherty, and I know not for you, I won't mention this, but when you lost to him in 1997, it was an ultimate lifelong fulfillment of Ken's goal. But to get there once for him was amazing. But to do that 5 years on a trot, did you just come there with unreal sort of self-belief and self-confidence year in, year out, that you were untouchable to do that feat?
Yeah, I was just complete confidence that I was the best player, and especially at the World Championship, I felt invincible. So yeah, I was number one, I think, for 8 years in a row, and during that, obviously winning the World Championship 5 years ago. So yeah, there was a period where I knew I was the best player. And I knew at the World Championship that was when I was playing my best snooker. So it was just, I just had that confidence.
Yeah, and I suppose, Stephen, in every great sport, there's a great rivalry. We see in darts, for ages it was Van Gerwen and Phil Taylor. We see in boxing Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson, and in the snooker world during the 90s it was Stephen Hendry and Ronnie O'Sullivan, and that sort of a battle and sort of the clash of sort of titans, and the character that Ronnie is, the flamboyancy that he brings to snooker. And well, was that sort of an extra gear or an extra pip in your step whenever you said, right, I'm going to be facing Ronnie, I got to get out and do more practice, Ronnie's around the corner? Did he go through your mind at times with the possibility of that you were going to meet him and then face to face with him across the snooker table, or do you just see him as another opponent, another player that just was on another step on the ladder for you to reach your goal?
It was just another opponent. I mean, through my career, I've had some great opponents and great rivalries. Obviously, Jimmy White, I played so many finals against him. Steve Davis was obviously the world number one before I took over, so that was a great rivalry with Steve. And then you had the period of 1992 when likes of Ronnie O'Sullivan, John Higgins, and Mark Williams turned professional, and then those three became huge figures in sport. And then obviously you mentioned Ken Doherty as well, and I was fortunate to play all these great players.
Yeah, and I suppose, Stephen, if we look at some of the great games and the great games of snooker, I suppose the Masters final against Mark Williams in 1998 will always be remembered, and the 7 century breaks compiled in one match, and you set many records. I mean, 16 compiled in one tournament. And if I to ask you, looking back, and to say to you, Stephen Hendry, you've been many classic counters, but if you'd say the top 3 matches for you yourself that you watch you in, what sort of 3 come to you straight away and say, yeah, that's always stick out, or I'm going to watch the video or play it back, or that brings a smile to my face? If I could say your top 3 matches.
It's very difficult. I've enjoyed so much, so many matches and so much. It's hard to pick out certain ones. Obviously, the one you mentioned, when I made 7 centuries against Ken, I was proud of that one, because I think it was my most highest scoring final, and obviously it's still a record today. So that was a great one. The term when I made a maximum in the deciding frame against O'Sullivan, that's another one that stands out, and possibly the one against Hallett in the Masters when I was 8-2 behind, and came back to win 9-8 in the Masters. So I mean, off the top of my head, those 3 stand out.
Yeah, and you played for a record 23 consecutive seasons in the top 16 world rankings, and you retired in 2012. And were you happy to go at that time? And you feel that I can step away now with no regrets, nothing left to fulfill? Or was there a bit of you that probably wanted to go on for that bit longer? We all see great champions like George Foreman come back, and Mike Tyson come back, and we always see sports stars who always want to come back for one more cut at the big time. When you stepped away as 2012, you were content to say, right, I'm going away and that's it. I'm going to enjoy the game from watching on and maybe playing at home for the fun of the game.
I retired myself because obviously I wasn't winning the way I used to be, and for me the enjoyment of snooker came from winning. And if I didn't feel I was playing well enough to do that, then I wasn't enjoying it as much. So it was quite an easy decision, really. You know, I do miss obviously the big occasions, playing on the big occasions, but yeah, for various reasons. But what the main one is you know, not enjoying losing to people that I shouldn't lose to.
Yeah, and if you look now from your crystal ball, looking up and looking down at major tournaments, and do you think the future of snooker is in a good place at the moment? I suppose Ronnie's still there, maybe John Higgins is still there for the moment, but their time will come. And do you think the next generation or the next rise of snooker players coming up is going to keep the level of snooker as a top level industry sport in the UK and the world? Or do you feel maybe some of the rivalries that yourself and Steve Davis, as you mentioned, Jimmy White, Ronnie O'Sullivan, that those were the key, maybe the boom period in snooker, and maybe that has yet to come around again?
No, I think the game is very healthy, and there's obviously a lot more tournaments now, and I think the top players just now will be around for the next few years still. There's obviously a lot of young players coming from China who will you know, possibly be successful in the future. But I think the standard is very high at the moment, and the game is in a good state. And
finally, Stephen, before I let you go, if in relation to any sort of 12-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl that's out there in Ireland and in a county listening in to us this evening and that's thinking of taking up the sport of snooker at a young age, what would you say to them if you were to give them any sort of advice if they wanted to pursue a career in snooker? What are the sort of traits or this training or the schedule or that helps you along the way?
I think it depends what age you start. If you're starting to play snooker around about 9, 10, 11 years old, the first and foremost, you just got to enjoy playing. You got to play for the enjoyment, and not put too much pressure or take it too seriously. But obviously, if you get to the age of 15, 16, 17, and you've got talent and you think you've got potential to be successful, then obviously it's all about dedication and hard work. You know, it doesn't matter how much talent you've got. If you don't work at it, then you won't get the rewards.
Stephen Hendry, it's been an absolute pleasure talking on to you on the airwaves there this evening as we look back on your marvellous, iconic snooker career. No doubt you will stand the test of time as one of the all-time modern greats that ever picked up a cue and that ever graced the crucible in relation to snooker world champions. It's been an absolute honour talking to you, Stephen Hendry, and no doubt we'll see you and enjoy listening to you on our TVs, passing on all the wisdom and words to the next generation of snooker players.
Thank you very much. You're very welcome.
Cheers. Thank you, Stephen. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.